Good morning, Geauga County, Lake County, and all places around the world. I happen to be sitting in a different place around the world right now, and we're streaming live to Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. If you want to join us, you can go to one of those three destinations. You can also listen to us on Wint Radio 101.5 or 1330 AM. And if you want to be involved with the program, you can call us at 440-946-9468. You can email us at voiceofjaga@gmail.com. And this program is being brought to you this morning by Great Lakes Outdoor Supply. Fantastic sporting goods plus a lot more, located in Chesterland, Ohio, Middlefield, Ohio, and in Pennsylvania if you happen to be up in the Pennsylvania area. So this morning I have Jonathan Broadbent with me, co-host, and Hillary Jackson, who you're going to get to know, Moms for Liberty, and we're going to have a conversation about Moms for Liberty this morning, and everybody will find out who they are and what they are all about. So I am seeing some people showing up on chat in our Rumble channel. That always gets pretty lively. So if you want to join us and engage us in the conversation in a pretty lively way, you can join us on Rumble. We have a rowdy crowd in there. And by the way, we talk through the breaks. So when you're listening station breaks on the radio, you want to stay engaged with us, we have some pretty robust conversations through the breaks, and we tell everybody the secrets that we don't broadcast on the radio. So if you want to help the station to grow and to get better, then help us to find sponsors for the program and help us to spread the word. Like us, go to Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube and like us and share our program. And there you go. So Jonathan, good morning. Good morning, Hillary. Jonathan, why don't you introduce Hillary?
Yeah, so I'm going to be quick about my introduction. Those of you who follow me on social media and may have listened to prior episodes may know that I spent some years involved with an organization called Protect Ohio Children that is focused on returning education and allowing for childhood in and around K through 12 education. Well, there's another organization that is a national organization called Moms for Liberty. One of the coolest things I discovered during the time I was involved, actually I still volunteer for Protect Ohio Children, is the collaboration between organizations, and there are many. You may hear about Parents Defending Education and No Left Turn in Education, things like it. There are many organizations out there that advocate for proper traditional education in K through 12. Moms for Liberty, among other things, is primarily focused on that. Hillary Jackson is the head of Moms for Liberty, Cuyahoga County. And I want to put this in perspective. There are many chapters all over. We have one to the north of us in Lake County. There's a Lake County Moms for Liberty chapter. There's one in Summit County. I think there may also be one in Stark, both to the south of us. Right now, we don't have a chapter active, and that's a hint for anybody in our listening audience out there who may like what you have to hear from Hillary Jackson today. But I've asked Hillary to join us so that we can talk about what they are doing at Moms for Liberty, how they do it, and the focus of the organization, and perhaps most importantly, the tools that are available to us. My last point, and then I'm going to turn the mic over to Hillary Jackson, that is, it may be named Moms for Liberty, that there's plenty of room for men to be involved. I've personally been involved in several chapters. I do what I can to help out Moms for Liberty, Cuyahoga County. With that said, Hillary Jackson, welcome to the show. Tell us more about yourself.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me on. So basically what we do with Moms for Liberty is we are advocates for parental rights. And the emphasis is in education, of course, but we focus primarily on making sure that parents have the right, the constitutional right, to direct their children's upbringing in the way that they see fit. And a lot of that, unfortunately, we are seeing issues within our education system where parents are losing their ability to do that. And whether that's, within, curriculum that, is teaching things that, parents, vehemently disagree with, or, schools, we've seen stories where, schools are, socially transitioning their kids without informing parents. Um, we have an issue in Virginia where we had schools help facilitating abortions and medical treatment without informing parents and getting parental consent. So that's what we do primarily. Um, I guess what I would like to say is what we don't do, because when the internet's a crazy place, and if you were to Google Moms for Liberty, unfortunately, there's a lot of noise and a lot of distraction to take away from what we actually do and what we actually stand for. Um, what we don't do is we don't ban books. We have a very strict policy where we believe that materials located in school libraries should serve an educational purpose, and it should be age appropriate. Um, you know, if something is located in the library for a preschooler that obviously is meant for the eyes of a junior high student or a high school student, we are absolutely going to advocate for that book to be placed appropriately, based on, age and maturity level. You know, we're not going to light it on fire. That's it. Just obviously, moving things, age appropriate, no different than if you were to go to the store or Barnes and Noble. You're not going to find, your romance novels next to your potty training manuals. It's the same concept. That's what we believe in. That's what we stand for. Another thing that we don't do is we do not fight for policy to discriminate against the LGBTQ community. We don't really have a stance on that, actually. Our stance is very much, we don't believe that sexual orientation or gender identity should be presented to students from the school. Let's focus on making sure our kids can read, making sure that our kids are able to do math, that they actually, can graduate ready for college, and ready to be, into the workforce, not try to confuse them by bringing in ideas of, sexual immorality to our elementary students, and confuse them with ideology. That's, very much what we're finding, on the left. And we believe that parents should be able to, direct their children when it comes to conversations about things like that. That shouldn't be involved in public education at all. With that being said, we work very closely with an organization, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because we do partner with an organization called Gays Against Groomers. We have chapters that are led by people of the LGBT community, and we don't care. When we draw the line is when we are lying, or we're expected to believe the lie that men can become women and women can become men, that men can have babies, that we need to have tampons in the boys' bathroom, and that it's okay for teachers and students to have inappropriate relationships. That's it. That's where we draw the line, and that's what we that's what we stand for, and we advocate for parents to be educated in what's going on in our school systems, because it's very real. It's no more, the tinfoil hat is no more a thing. You got to take it off. It's actually happening, and we want to empower parents so that they know what they can do, to either protect their students from things like this, or if it's already happening, what their rights are.
By the way, if you're in our listening audience and have a smartphone or are online, you can go to the website Moms for Liberty, Moms, F-O-R, Liberty.org. That's momsforliberty.org. I'm looking at it now, and there's all sorts of resources and information available. And they get into all sorts of stuff, tech in the classrooms, the impending, uh, very potential harm of AI in the classrooms. And I imagine you're going to find some components there having to do with data mining children, all of those sorts of issues. If you are concerned and paying attention, and it really doesn't matter if you are a parent, a soon to be parent, not yet wed, a grandparent, or simply just a tax-paying citizen. Ultimately, I want to encourage people to think of education as the primary target of our enemies. I'm sorry to put it in such terms, but if you haven't heard the expression, how to defeat America without firing a single shot, you should pay attention. A lot of us are talking, and we have been since COVID, about the status of our education system. We're coming up on a break, but when we come back, I'm going to talk more about what we're seeing in Ohio, and let's compare and contrast. Let's look at what's actually happening for, if you're not looking, I'm air quoting this right now, education in Ohio versus some of the arguably very harmful content. And it's organizations like Moms for Liberty that help you discern and arm you with information and the steps necessary to fight back. You can join the conversation at 440-946-9468. More on the other side of the break.
Mics are off, mics are off.
All right, so that's what we look for. There's the mics are off. We are actually still broadcasting, Hillary, on our podcast. So the podcast never or rarely stops from the moment we go. So we can still have some conversation, and it's our podcast audience that can hear us now. We're, for the moment, because of commercial break, we're not broadcasting over the air on the radio. So when we come back, Hillary, if okay with you, I'd like to point out some of the things that I've been pointing out for a long time now via the Academic Accountability Project. Anybody out there, and it should be everybody, who cares about the quality of education, and that really covers the whole spectrum, from left to right, everybody, at least on paper, claims to care about the quality of education, and many people have woken up to the fact that nationally, we're at about 30% literacy in our country. We've been declining significantly. And I mean, I've got some examples here I'll bring up when we return. Recently, I've been pointing at Lake County. Lake County spends over $505 million. And I have one district in particular, that's Wickliffe, that recently reported spending over $32,000 per student, and then their proficiency, that's another air quote, their proficiency scores were about 50%. Well, I've got some in Montgomery County that are much, much worse even. And we're going to point those out, and then hopefully use that as a stepping stone in our conversation. How do we get back to education? And it's certainly not adding more gender theory, gender confusion, race baiting, antagonizing people, telling, it's a key point, and for me, it's a hot button. I keep pushing it. This race baiting, telling all the white kids that they're all oppressors, and telling all the black kids they can never amount to anything because they're in this oppressive system. That is the formula to force and install communism. And what happens to all those people who think that they're in an oppressed category right now and think that communism, or whatever they're thinking it's going to be, socialism, what happens to all those people?
30 seconds.
Hey, Jonathan.
That's it.
Hey, Jonathan, give me a few minutes to weigh in. I have some comments to make on that, too.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to, when we come back, Skip, I'll just tease out some of the high-level numbers.
10 seconds.
Well, Welcome back to Voice of Geauga on WINT 101.5 FM, 1330 AM. Remember, you can join the conversation 440-946-9468 or on social media. Chime in on Rumble. I'll do my best to try to get your comments and questions aired. During the break, I mentioned my long-standing habit of pointing to school districts and counties. Recently, I've been pointing to Lake County, which has major issues in their education. But a new example that's come online for me is Montgomery County, Ohio. Montgomery County, Ohio, combined in their school districts, spends almost $1.3 billion on their education. I'm air quoting that. The result, we've got one of their school districts reporting spending $38,500 per student. Another is just under $43,000 per student. I mean, these are like high-end college sorts of per student, per capita sums. And the result that they're reporting, we've got one of their districts at 17.6% proficiency. One is at 18.9% proficiency. One is at 19.4% proficiency. Now remember that proficiency score in Ohio is dumbed down significantly. They've softened it and weakened those proficiency standards significantly. My point in bringing that up, and then I want to flip it over to Skip, because I know Skip is chomping at the bit here. He's got some comments that he wants to make. Why are we allowing schools to distract and evade and overspend with the gender confusion, the race baiting, and all of these other things that are clearly harming kids and destructive? That's not their place. We need to get schools back in their lane. What do you think, Skip?
Yeah, I've got a quote, and you guys might know the answer to this. Who was it that said, "Give me 4 years to teach your children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted"? Who said that?
Karl Marx.
No, Vladimir Lenin, but you were very close. And so there is a big picture here. We talk about our schools and we talk about what they're teaching, DEI and, constantly trying to divide our kids, racism and all that kind of stuff. By the way, that was baked into the teachers when they went to college. So a lot of these ideologies and stuff were baked into all the teachers, and the teachers, they think that that's education. And so the focus of the schools, broad brush wise, is intentional. And there's this big picture that people don't think about oftentimes, and that is there are factions and factors around the world. And I know this sounds very conspiratorial, but you can see it and prove it actually, that want to focus on things other than our basic education, math, science, language, so on and so forth, because they want to convert the world. They want to change the world. And so we could do a whole show on all the various factions that are going on around the world. We're seeing right now, thank God we got the president that we have, and I know he's getting beat up really hard, but he's trying to get the world back into order a little bit. And this whole war with going on with Iran will reset the Middle East and make it a better place. But there are factions around the world that want to focus on things other than basic education because they want to convert the world. And NOACA is one of those that wants to convert the world, and they do it through something called 2030 and 2021 and all that. But I'll ask one further question, and then I'll flip it back over to you, Jonathan. When I was growing up, and you were just not even a twinkle in your dad's eye yet, there was censorship on TV and radio, and I would ask anybody who was in my generation or earlier, because there are people actually that are older than me, believe it or not. When did we have, or is our society today as polite and civil as it was back in the 50s and the 60s? I mean, right now, I can't flip on the TV. I have to, if I had kids right now, God help the parents today that have children that have to worry about their devices and their TVs and what they're watching, because you flip through TV and my goodness, the language and a lot of stuff you see on TV and stuff is just a rot, and it rots your kids' brains.
Yeah, there's a lot of
and we
really
have to watch against that.
bad
And
stuff there for sure.
some of that stuff is leaking into schools, and Hillary talked about that.
Yeah.
So we can't forget the big picture. Our schools, some of them, not all of them. I think Geauga County is better than most, and that's the reason a lot of parents
We
want to move
actually have a
here.
question
But
in the Rumble chat. Hillary, do you want to comment on that, or
Hillary
I'll
can't see
pass
the
to.
chat, so you have to quote it. So
Yeah, go ahead and read it to me.
Yeah, so there's a great question here from One Concrete. How does your organization handle the book Was I in Mommy's Stomach Too? I'm a little confused since you said Moms for Liberty does not ban books.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And skip to, before I forget, those factions that you're talking about, they're called the Teachers Union. They're not even trying to hide that anymore. But that particular book, so that was a book that a parent actually found at a library close to where I live when they were looking for a book to explain what new siblings, what to expect when your parents are pregnant or your mom is pregnant, I guess I should say, and to how to cope with a new sibling entering your family. And that was not what was in this book. There was one page that was teaching how to perform sex acts. And since we're being aired on the radio, I literally cannot read that page to you. But if you go on my Facebook, you'll see it. Now that book, it's
with illustrations.
With illustrations, yes, very precise ones. So this particular book, I did a feature on Channel 19, and I very clearly stated that I had no intention to call for the banning of this book, but it was in the children's section of the library. Now, I will say Channel 19 did allow the library to change their statement after the story was initially aired, for them to say that it was in the parenting section, but I don't do anything without receipts and taking photos and documentation, because I've learned throughout my experience doing this work that those factions are loud and inaccurate, and they have every intention to cause harm. So that book was in the children's section. It was over by the toys, and all I called for was it to be moved to the parenting section, the real parenting section of that library, where I was the one that's clearly marked parenting section, because I went and I checked a book out over there. So no, I don't want to ban books. There's a lot of great things in that book, actually. Talking about anatomy, biology, how a baby, starts as an egg and an embryo and turns into, a beautiful baby. And I thought that was great. I really did. And a lot of parents could use that book to explain those things if it weren't for that one page that teaches your child how to give a hand job.
Yeah. So what you have there is just simply trying to put it on the right shelf.
That's it.
And we've run into that many times. I was very personally involved in a statewide campaign to try to expose the pornographic material in an array of books about 4 years ago. And people documented, people actually worked up pages that would say, turn to page 27, this is a book that's in and being given out to kids in junior high, and here's what you find, etc. And so there's a whole documented library, so to speak, of information about bad or harmful or at least questionable content. And as parents, you should be in the driver's seat. As parents, you should be the ones deciding, not some librarian. Or if the library makes a mistake and just doesn't realize that there's some graphic content, there should be organizations and people like Hillary and Moms for Liberty that are able to step forward and call them out and say, hey, I think you may have this on the wrong shelf, without, 19 Action News or whatever, stepping in and allowing somebody in that library system to, according to what you've said, appears to have been untruthful about how they shelved it and lying. allegedly, and about which shelf it was on. We're coming up on a break. I see some more comments here. We'll get to those when we come back. Remember, you can join the conversation at 440-946-9468. If you're having any problem hearing this, you can live stream the audio only, if you want, at wintradio.com or voiceofgeauga.com. So I hope that others will join the conversation. When we come back, I want to drill down into the obvious, or what should be obvious, and that's the publishers. And who owns the publishers? Because that, to me, is a clear tell on what's happening and why. We're going to come back with publishers and education and a lot more on the other side of the break.
I have always thought.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
All right.
So what we don't talk about, Jonathan, and we should bring this up, is they do ban books in libraries. And so they're using our tax dollars, and there are certain books they will not put in the library. And so somebody is judging which books are going to be put in the library, which ones are not. And we had to talk at some point in time, maybe talk about the library boards and people, because we put people on school boards because we want to change the school. We need to change the library boards because
so that's effective banning. It's not really literally taking a book and going and burning it or something.
No. But they're screening books because the library's got limited space and they only put certain. Right. And so they're choosing certain books. And so the book that Hillary was talking about, they chose to put in the library. And why did they do that?
They chose to put it in that section that they did, because when I called, well, at first they told me that they didn't even have this book, and that's the part that Channel 19 forgot to mention. When the parent called me, and I initially called the library, this was before I even went down there to see it for myself. When I called, they told me that they didn't have it. But now all of a sudden it's in there, yeah. But I was able to check it out.
As if they don't have this thing called a computer.
Well, what's so crazy, Jonathan, is so I've learned a lot. And I will say I did have somebody from the library reach out to me privately to explain to me exactly what happened, and it's called shadowing. So, yeah, there's a mole in the Cuyahoga County library system. Listen, I don't say anything without knowing I'm 100% correct.
Oh, so there's a good actor within.
There is a good actor. So I knew exactly where to go when I walked into Parma Powers.
Huh. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, if we think about it rationally and reasonably, there are rating systems for a reason on books and video games and movies and all this. You pick up a DVD and flip it over. On the back it's going to say, PG or PG-13 or R or whatever, and you act accordingly. Why in the world wouldn't a library do the same thing? And the crazy.
Oh, they do. They do. And there was 3 adults, and she told me the process, and she told me the positions of who reads those. There was at least 3 adults that read that book that decided that it was appropriate to be placed in the area of that library specifically, not even just to have it in their system, but to where it's placed.
Wow.
Yes.
3
and
people.
At least 3 adults thought that teaching your child how to perform sex acts was okay to be placed in the 3 to 6 area of the library.
We need to touch on that when we
There's some
back.
sick people out there.
There's I mean, we saw the movement, and apparently it's still going on, and there's still people, primarily in California and some other spots, that have tried to relabel pedophilia as MAP, minor attracted person. They're trying to soften it with terminology and try to create that as some sort of sexual
30 seconds.
Well, it's happening, and that's happening in public education too, with the teachers union. I mean, the ALA and the teachers unions, they're in bed together. I can't even begin to tell you how many reports I have of the school boards protecting the staff and the unions protecting the staff instead of the kids.
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent, and our returning guest, first-time guest, Hillary Jackson. Hillary Jackson is joining us for the first time. Conversation around Moms for Liberty and all of the resources available there. Hillary said something very interesting during the break, and something I didn't know. So this book, in order for it to have gotten through screening, been approved for that library, and then get put on the shelf where it was, had to go through at least 3 people. Tell us again, for our audience, what you said during the break.
Hey, Jonathan, I'm going to interrupt real quick because we were having a conversation in the break that I think people need to know about. The library does have a screening board, and they do ban books. And so they choose which books go in the library, which ones don't go in the library, and then where the books go in the library, where they place them.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
And so somebody intentionally chose to put the book where they put it, and so that's an important point that I didn't want missed.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're headed. Tell us, Hillary, about those 3 people and what that looks like. What's that screening to get onto the shelf where it was?
Yeah, so again, the reason why I found out about this is because I did call the library and I asked them why this book was placed in the children's section. And again, one of the things that Channel 19 didn't air was that when I called the library, they initially told me that they didn't even have this book. And according to their website, they didn't have it. So after I called, I went to see for myself, and it was exactly where the little mole in the Cuyahoga County Library told me where it was. But anyway, when I called and she had explained the process, she explained that there were at least 3 adults in the library, from the board to the branch manager of that specific library, that screens and reads the book, and then they approve it, and then they choose which section it was in. So I want to be very clear. There was at least 3 adults that read this book, supposedly from cover to cover, that saw this page. Without getting too graphic, this page literally teaches your child how to perform sex acts, and with descriptions, with how-tos, with photos. 3 adults read that page and thought that it was appropriate to be placed in the children's section. If you hear otherwise, it's a lie, and I have all of the proof. It was absolutely in the children's section, 3 through 6 of the Parma Powers Library branch, under their sign that says brothers and sisters. 3 adults, at least 3 adults.
Hillary, we've got a question here in the comments. We've got Nana Sherrill is asking, is there a chapter in Lake County? I believe there is, isn't there?
So we do have a Lake County chapter. It is not active at the moment. We are looking for a new chapter chair to kind of, to help take over the reins there. This is a very tough role. If you haven't been paying attention to my page, or this is the first time that you're hearing about what I do and what Moms for Liberty does, this is a battle. I'm under attack constantly by people who, again, you want to ban books. No, I don't. We've never banned a book. I've never called for a book to be, removed, just moved to its appropriate location. We've been called things from the minivan Taliban to things that I can't repeat on the radio, because we're supposedly, Christian nationalists wanting to, discriminate against. It's just not true. Anything to actually distract from the reality of what's going on in our kids. The enemy, whoever that may be, is going to pull, and they're going to attempt to do whatever they can.
Hillary, thank goodness, because here's my experience. people that start calling names and don't focus on the issue at hand and be able to discuss that have lost the argument. They have nothing else.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
what they do is they
absolutely.
call people names, they call you racist, they call you a book banner, because they're not intelligent enough. And if you disagree with this, you're welcome to call the program. They're not either smart enough or they have an agenda, and so they have nothing else. All they can do is call names. They can call you a name, and now they're trying to divide people and make it all emotional. That's because
Yeah.
they don't
Well,
have an argument. And
well,
if
and
you,
why lie? You
that's
know,
right.
like, and this is one important thing too that I think a lot of, my job to empower and educate parents is for you guys to know that there are things in Ohio called it's called the obscenity law. Okay, so just as an example, if a construction worker or a postal worker or a firefighter were to take that specific page of that book and read the contents out loud or show those images to children walking down the street, they would be arrested for violating obscenity laws. Now, there are two professions that are exempt from obscenity laws: librarians and teachers.
Yeah,
The,
teachers.
the two professions that have unfettered access to our children are exempt from obscenity laws.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to interject for the listening audience. What you want to look for, if you'd like to learn more about that, is Ohio Revised Code 3313.60. And I believe it's Section G specifically that references that. That's a common topic we've brought up for years at Protect Ohio Children. And Hillary's exactly right. There is a huge content. If you or I or any average citizen were to take this content and hand it to a child, we're guilty of I believe that's a third-degree felony.
Yes.
And the moment that it's in the hands of a teacher or librarian, they can hand out effectively anything. Well, back when that law was originally set up, society viewed the images of the statue of David as pornographic. No, never would they have imagined true graphic pornographic material falling into the hands of librarians willing to hand it out to children. And it takes organizations like Moms for Liberty to call that stuff out. And yes, the name calling is going to start. The name calling comes from the people that have no argument, to Skip's point. So
And we're getting
take?
some comments, and one of the comments is, why would we not want to get the book banned from the library? I mean, if you're an adult, I mean, I know Playboys used to be stuck under the counter. I don't know if Playboy even exists anymore. And so adults make rational decisions to protect their kids or protect our kids, society's kids. And so why would we not look at the content of certain books? So that's a question. That's not me promoting that idea. That's a question. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't we do
Well,
that?
it sounds to me like
So,
they have a clear stance at Moms for Liberty. They will not call for the banning of a book. They will call for the proper storing and displaying of the book. So even to use your point, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Hillary, I want your viewpoint, but to me, your answer already seems clear. If there were a Playboy magazines or something, Moms for Liberty is not putting themselves in the position of saying that can't be in the library. Moms for Liberty is saying that should be put appropriately somewhere where only adults can gain access to that because it contains
Yes.
pornographic material.
Well, right. I mean, and we are advocates for the First Amendment. We're advocates for what the Constitution says, and we don't believe in censorship. I mean, me personally, like, I do not believe in censorship. I think that you should be able to say whatever you want, whenever you want. But that's just me, and I'm trying really hard to be on my best behavior on your show. But at the same time, there's obviously a very clear what used to be common sense and what used to be called manners. Um, it was one of those things that we shouldn't even have to have an obscenity law because it should be common sense that our children are not biologically able to perform those things that are in these books. So then it's obviously like not okay. Like there's literal science to back that up. But now all these lines are getting blurred, so where we have to step in some capacity. But that's not the same thing as censorship, and I will never say that banning a book or calling for a book's removal is ever the right thing to do. People have the right to publish whatever they want to publish. They have the right to say whatever they want to say, and they have the right to read whatever they want to read. It just has to be accessible in a way that isn't harmful to the most vulnerable people in our community, which is our children.
Right. Clearly, there are rating systems on everything, from video games to movies to books, all kinds of things. And then it is the job of the parent to look at the back of that DVD or the video game and make a judgment call and make an assessment. When we trust libraries, we have historically forever, we have trusted the library system to have done that vetting. So when we turn our kid loose in that library section, in the toddler section, we are naturally, in a sane world, we're trusting the library to have done appropriate vetting. And for you to have gotten to the point where you've called out one and then met with stonewalling and smoke screens, allegedly. We're coming up on a break, but I am going to... Gaslighting. I'm going to take us into the break with the encouragement that people keep posting comments. I see a couple. We'll try to incorporate those in the discussion. And, of course, you can feel free to call in 440-946-9468. Don't forget, if you have information, questions you'd like to get to Voice of Geauga, you can always email voiceofgeauga@gmail.com. And don't forget to tell your friends about Voice of Geauga. Get more people tuning in and listening and following on social media. It's Voice of Geauga. More on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. You have a phone call on line 1, which is Renee from Chardon.
Renee.
Renee.
Excellent.
If you guys don't mind, I would love for you guys to put my number and my email address in the chat. If people have questions or people have things that they need help with, I mean, that's my job. That's what I do. And I understand that Geauga obviously doesn't have a chapter, but if there is something that I can do to help parents or facilitate maybe starting a chapter, my contact information is out there. My personal cell phone number is out there, so might as well share it. I don't mind that at all.
Well, here's what I'm going to suggest, because the live chat that's going on right now is different than the comments. Unfortunately, because of the way that Rumble is set up, those don't stay with the show. But comments will. What I'm going to suggest is after the show, I'll make sure that you have links to YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook, and Think ask you to post that there.
Okay, yep, absolutely.
Great. So people can contact you. There is a question in the chat. How does, I think it was Nana Cheryl. Forgive me if I'm misreading.
I wonder if that's Cheryl from Wickliffe.
Nana Cheryl asked, is the chapter in Lakewood, what would it take? Oh, here it is. I would like information on how to get the Lake County chapter started up, please. So what would it take? Just a phone call to you?
Yeah, a phone call to me. We would obviously schedule. We screen our own people because you have to, and make sure you got a thick skin, thick skin, and a drive to protect our children.
10 seconds.
No other.
I want to know what kind of people call in.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent, and guest Hillary Jackson from Moms for Liberty. We're talking about all the resources available. I'm going to tease something so I don't forget to get it at least onto the table, and then we're going to go to a phone call. The publishers, the organizations, the people, the conglomerates that own publishers like McGraw-Hill and Pearson Publishing, those are two of the largest, that create content that goes into K through 12 education. I'm just going to tease this out and let you know that you need to know more about who owns those publishers. Those publishers, you have to know more. It will be eye-opening. Maybe that will be another show. But let's welcome Renee from Chardon to the air. Renee, you're on Voice of Geauga.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I just have to say that I respectfully disagree with Moms for Liberty for not wanting to ban these types of books. Books that not only encourage the sexualization of our children, but clearly instruct them how to perform sexual activities. Our First Amendment rights are not there to protect pedophiles. This book is clearly marketed to children ages 3 to 8 years old. We can all look it up online. And more importantly, why would an adult need this book? Obviously, if the woman is pregnant, she doesn't need instruction from a cartoon book. Adults know how to perform sexual acts. And I guess it shouldn't be up to Moms for Liberty or any other similar nonprofit organizations to call for the banning of books that clearly encourage pedophilia. That should be the job of our federal government, but that is clearly not happening. Thank you for taking my call.
I'm right there with you, Renee.
Let me jump in, and I'm sorry for interrupting, because there's a distinction we need to make. There's a difference between banning books and First Amendment rights. Anybody can publish anything. You can say anything you choose to. That doesn't mean other people have to consume that information. So if I want to go publish a book, whatever this book happens to be, I have a right to do that, and then seek the market and see if people want to buy it. We don't have to have a library that uses our tax dollars to buy that book. And so we're not banning the book, we're simply not buying the book. And the marketplace then can determine whether or not the free speech that somebody has. So I don't buy the argument. Somebody says, oh, you're banning a book. That's just stupid language. That's stupid thinking, because we're not banning it. It's out there in the marketplace. You want to buy it, go buy it. We're just telling the libraries, don't spend our tax dollars on this kind of goofiness, because the libraries have limited space. They have to choose what goes in the library. Let's make it the best of the best, the cream of the crop for our children and for the people who are in there consuming stuff. Anyway, that's my rant and 2 cents, because I have issues when people start mixing up these terms like, oh, just because we're choosing not to buy something, we're banning a book. That's ridiculous. We're not interfering with free speech.
So. Yeah, and I'm right there with you, Renee. I really I agree with you. I don't understand the purpose and the intention behind this, behind writing this book, behind the necessity of why it needs to be in the library. I'm right there with you. Where as far as Moms for Liberty goes, like Skip was saying, we have to be so careful with the word banning because, again, banning has turned into this thing where, we are violating First Amendment, where we're calling for censorship, where we're calling for, this communist kind of idea where, people don't have their constitutional right to information and all of this stuff. And it is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But that is what the word banning has taken on that meaning. So that when we say that we don't support banning a book, we unfortunately mean it in that capacity, because that's what that's turned into. But I will be the first to say that as far as, the contents of that, specific book, the rest of it's fantastic, except that one page that absolutely promotes, in my opinion, and I mean, I'll even speak outside of my affiliation with the organization. In my opinion, it absolutely is promoting pedophilia. When you have books, when you have content like this in a children's book, it normalizes it. For children to think that is okay, that it even says that it feels good. It takes away the danger of what those things can do to children. It blurs that line, and I don't believe that it belongs in any store, in any library, anywhere ever. But to Skip's point, unfortunately, banning is not the same thing anymore as just that library just shouldn't have it in there. It's a choice for them to use our tax dollars to put it in there. That's what I disagree with. And if people want to call that banning, then
they're going to call it banning.
They're going to call it, yeah, exactly.
They will. It's just like name calling. It's the only thing they've got. But you know what it comes down to? It's the same thing that we talk about often. Get involved, everybody. If you're listening to this, get involved. Fill the board at your library, because what we lack are people with decency and common sense joining boards. It is a plague upon this nation that we have extremely activist, far left agenda filling up school boards, filling up county boards, filling up boards of education, state board of education. There is it's called the long, slow march. And personally, once you see it, you can't unsee it. There are people with far left agenda, and for one solid year, the head of the American Library Association was an avowed Marxist, and she was proud of it. She used it as a launching point to get that position at the national level, setting the tone for the libraries throughout the United States. If you want to see these things gone, and that includes the race baiting and gender theory and all those things from K through 12. And if you want to see your boards make better decisions about including better content in your local libraries, then you have to get people on the board who don't believe in those things, who want to bring back the pursuit of excellence. The pursuit of excellence is lacking in so many of these places. What do you think, Hillary?
Well, for me, yes, a pursuit of excellence is obviously lacking, but I'll take it one step further, Jonathan. I believe that we are in a spiritual battle between good and evil. Whenever we start having a conversation about pedophilia and pornography in our children's section, that is literally talking about the presence of evil in our public libraries, with evil coming after and attacking our children, trying to separate and divide families, trying to take over the role of the parent. It comes down to not even being a decent person, but we have got to do our role as, well, for me, and I'll just say it, as good, God-fearing people, to step into these roles. And that's not to push any sort of, spiritual agenda, but if you are a person that does not believe that pedophilia is evil and pornography in our children's content is evil, then you don't belong on the board of a library that chooses content. You just don't. But we need more good people to step in and to speak out, and be prepared for what happens when you do. I've gotten calls for physical violence against me and my family for calling pedophilia what it is, like literally just reading a definition of what it is and showing an example of what it is. So be ready for it, but it's a fight worth fighting for.
It definitely is. We're actually coming up at the conclusion of our show. We've got about 30 seconds left. Hillary Jackson from Moms for Liberty is going to be putting her contact information in the notes, so come back to this and share it. If you're in wherever you are, get a hold of Hillary and set the stage, set things in motion to start a chapter where you live and fight back for children and education. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and thank you, Hillary, for joining us.
Of course, thank you guys.